think that, when we talk about networks, what we've seen, I think, that's interesting over the last maybe 10 years is more networks forming with, I'd say, sort of explicit issue or flavor focus. And flavor is a terrible, terrible, terrible term. But it speaks to the tree, the family tree of organizing that Doran was talking about. And I think, when you think about networks, the intent is really to amplify what is happening in local organizing at greater scale, right? And so, now I think there's a rich set of networks, and many organizations are increasingly part of different networks, in part because it allows them to tap into different kinds of capacities, different kinds of training opportunities, networking opportunities. So there are networks now of organizations that are doing voter engagement work, which is something that's near and dear to many people's hearts, as we heard earlier. Some interesting organizations that are coming together around the umbrella of the Right to the City Alliance. So talking about what it actually means to participate in understanding urban areas as places that the people that live there have a role and a right to in determining what happens. And I think that it's fair to say that the U.S. Social Forum and the social forums process writ large is a gathering of networks and itself, to some degree, a network in its own right. And so all of these are formations where a couple of things happen, right? One is the peer-to-peer connection, which is actually invaluable. One of the things that I think is often invisible within an invisible field is that if you think about any other discipline out there, sales, teaching, making signs, right? There are professional associations for all of these things. Networks fill that role for organizing. And if you think about what professional associations do for the people that are members, there's professional development opportunities, there's network opportunities, there's actually talking about the art and practice of what it is that you do so that you can do it better. What's also really interesting that happens in networks is the ability to move strategy between organizations. So when people find something that works, that's particularly effective, there are key individuals who actually have power to do something about what it is that we want to change, right? What networks enable us to do is to map out that power analysis and say, okay, these are the people that we have the power to move in alignment together so that, in this example, Oberstar has the support needed to move that agenda. And I think that is, that's the critical piece to understand. It's super wonky. Everybody's eyes glaze over when you really start to dig into what this means. And what I think is interesting is that more and more organizations that we're working with at PTP are really pushing us on what the infrastructure for highly decentralized organizing looks like, right? So how do you move beyond the base? That's exactly that question. We know from the last 7, 8, 9 years, and especially from the election season of '08, that the potential universe of supporters for community organizing groups is much, much, much larger than what is currently being tapped. And I know that Isaiah has some plans for, trying to reach out and tap into this much broader circle of potential supporters. And the problem, the challenge I see is that we actually have to think outside of the box of what our organizations are, because in organizing, our default is you get someone's name and you invite them to a meeting, or you ask them for money. There are a lot of people out there that want to give money. There are very few people, especially younger people, that want to have anything to do with organizations, institutions, and coming to a meeting. And there's some fascinating research that some organizations have done around, essentially sort of social values polling in the areas where they're working, where they identified, okay, there's this group of people, young people, people of color, exactly the people that we would want to be engaging, but you know what? They don't want to give the time of day to an organization. So how the heck do we actually engage them when we know that they're with us on the values, but they are actually Cynical's not the right word.